So I'm currently on my way to get something that should help me to make much better pizza. And in order to find it, I had to do quite a bit of searching around, but I think I finally found a place that has it. So this is Wisconsin brick cheese. It's basically like a fattier and slightly tangier alternative to mozzarella, and it's what's traditionally used on Detroit-style pizza. But depending on where you live, it might not be the easiest thing to find. For me, I was able to get this giant brick of it at my local food service store, but what I really want to know is the difference between this and your typical mozzarella actually that noticeable? Alright, so what I did here was bake a pizza. You probably figured that out by now. But what I did with this pizza was I baked half with my typical mozzarella and half with the Wisconsin brick cheese. I can already see a pretty clear difference. Surprisingly, the Wisconsin brick cheese actually got a little bit darker browning and kind of got a little more charred around the edges here. Based on my initial research, I thought it was going to be the other way around. A lot of people say that Wisconsin brick cheese doesn't burn against the edges. Obviously though, the appearance is only one part of the story, so let's give it a try. But before I try the actual pizza, I'm going to try the cheeses on their own just to kind of see the difference between the two. So here I've got my typical mozzarella cheese. So the mozzarella, I mean, obviously that's the taste I'm used to, but let's try the Wisconsin brick cheese now. Definitely a much tangier, slightly sharper flavor. I would say it tastes a little bit fattier too. I think it is a little bit fattier than mozzarella. And honestly, on its own, to me, it tastes a lot better and more interesting than this typical mozzarella. But let's see how it turned out on the pizza. And for now, this is my Buddy's style dough recipe, which I'll leave linked below, and I kind of showed my process for making this in the last video. It's a bigger difference than I was actually expecting. As soon as I bit into the one with the Wisconsin brick cheese, I mean, it just reminded me of a Detroit style pizza. It has that classic taste that you'd expect. Cheese is nicely melted, has some really nice browning on it, got a little bit of tanginess. Then I bit into the one with the mozzarella, and to my surprise, it actually had a slightly rubbery texture to it. I don't know if it's because it was baked for longer, maybe the grease just kind of got squeezed out of it, but that didn't really look to be the case. Could also be because it cooled slightly. With the brick cheese though, you can see it maintained its much creamier texture. And it's even more noticeable when you bite into it. Plus on top of that, it has a lot more interesting flavor. Again, the mozzarella just almost tastes like nothing by comparison. Pretty weird because I really like this mozzarella when I make a New York style pizza. Really the only advantage I'm seeing over the mozzarella in this case is that crispy cheese edge from the pan didn't kind of overchar and get burnt like it did with the Wisconsin brick cheese. I think I just need to dial in my baking method to fix that problem. And actually, this has me wondering if brick cheese is a better move for all types of pizza. So what I've got here is basically just a higher hydration version of my New York style pizza recipe. It's easily my favorite style of pizza to make, and typically I just make it with mozzarella, but not this time. So as usual, I baked with my baking steel on the second highest rack of my oven. And I baked for about 3 minutes at my oven's highest temperature. Then I cranked on the broiler for about the last 2 minutes, and I rotated the pizza halfway through that. Right, that's a pretty good looking pizza. Over here we got the brick cheese, over here we got the mozzarella. And again, we can see a pretty clear difference already. Mozzarella has that typical look you'd expect, a little bit of orange greasiness from the cheese separation, and a little bit of browning on top of the cheese as well. With the brick cheese though, it looks a lot creamier, not quite as orange, but probably about the same amount of browning. I'm very curious though to see what they taste like. I'm gonna start with the mozzarella here just because that's what I'm used to. Yeah, I mean pretty much just what I'd expect. Tastes like your standard New York slice, just a little bit of an airier crust. But now the one that I'm really curious about, the brick cheese. So flavor-wise, the brick cheese actually adds a really nice flavor. I mean, just like you'd expect, when I tasted the cheese raw, the brick cheese has a little bit more tanginess to it. And same thing when I tried it on the Detroit-style pizza. I will say though, the texture of this brick cheese seemed a little bit strange. It almost had a sort of graininess to it, like if you've ever tried to make a cheese sauce with an aged cheese. And it seemed really weird to me because I thought that given this one was baked for such a shorter amount of time than the Detroit-style pizza, that the cheese wouldn't have melted quite as much. And so that got me thinking, which led to a pretty big realization. And we've been through this before. I mean, we know that in a home oven, all the heat's gonna be coming from that bottom heating element. And especially when you're making pizza, the stone or steel that you're using is gonna get super, super hot. And so the pizza is primarily cooking from the bottom. Even so though, I always just assume that since the cheese is on top of the pizza, it would be the sort of residual heat in the oven that's actually causing it to melt and separate. But what I saw with my thin crust pizza is that even though it was baked for a much shorter period of time, only about 5 minutes as opposed to 12 minutes with the Detroit style, the cheese separated a lot more quickly. And to me that was pretty surprising because obviously I know the steel helps to crisp up the bottom of the pizza, but I never thought the heat would penetrate that far all the way through the dough, all the way through the sauce, and have that big of an impact on the cheese. And even though in this case I did use the broiler, I baked my New York style pizza plenty of times without the broiler, and I always have that same issue. And so I guess I'm saying all this to say that I don't think that brick cheese is ideal for a thinner crust pizza because it's just gonna separate too quickly and honestly has a pretty off-putting texture when that happens. I would take the slight rubberiness of a cooled mozzarella over that graininess of the cooled brick cheese any day. Especially because reheating a slice with mozzarella is gonna basically bring it back to its original form. Whereas even reheating this, it's never gonna get fixed. I mean, once an emulsion is broken, it's broken. So I have another test that I wanna do here. Alright, so this time I don't really see any major differences right off the bat. I think the bigger difference is gonna come once we cut into them and give them a try. Now I put a different amount of pepperonis on each one so that I could tell the difference. Number 1 here is the big cubes that I've been using. Number 2 is the smaller cubes, which I guess is probably the most similar to what Buddy's actually uses. Number 3 here is the grated cheese. And number 4 is the slices. And as I cut into them and start to look at them a little bit closer, I can see a few differences here. With number 1, I can see the individual chunks that it started with. They may not have fully melted down, but overall it looks pretty solid. Same thing with number 4 with the slices. You can kind of see the distinct slices if you look closely, but it's not a huge difference. All of them though got a pretty nice cheese edge. Again, I gotta figure out how to fix that issue where it's overcharring, but that'll probably be an issue for a future episode once I dial in the baking method. For now, let's give these a try. Yeah, so the main thing I'm noticing is that the ones that were cut a little bit thicker, basically number 1 and number 4, didn't really melt fully. They have kind of still a raw cheese flavor to them, and even in some bites, I bit off whole chunks of cheese because they just didn't melt together completely. So I actually think that the better method is either gonna be the small cubes or the grated cheese. Now, honestly, I can't really tell a huge difference between the two. I think either method would be fine. For me, I'll probably just start grating it going forward because the other thing I noticed with these two when I was building the pizza, especially with the grated cheese, it looked like I was putting a ton of cheese on there, even though I used the exact same amount for all 4 of these. I weighed them out 40 grams on each slice, but again, the grated one just looked like so much more cheese. So basically that means we can get away with using a little bit less cheese and still cover the entire surface of the pizza. However, like I said before, a lot of people may not have access to brick cheese at all, which is a problem that I think I need to make another trip in order to solve. But first, we need to talk about this video's sponsor, AG1. AG1 is more than just your average green powder. It's a science-driven formula of over 75 different vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and whole food sourced ingredients that aid your brain, gut, and immune system. So I've been taking 1 scoop of AG1 every single morning, and it gives me a noticeable boost of energy to start off my day. It contains rhodiola, magnesium, and B vitamins, which support sustained energy so I don't feel the peaks and dips that I used to. And probably my favorite thing about AG1 is that it's an all-in-one supplement, so I don't need to take a million different pills to get the nutrients that I need. All I have to do is shake a scoop of AG1 together along with some water, and I'll be getting a full spectrum of vitamins and minerals that I might otherwise miss in my diet. So in addition to supporting focus and energy, it supports gut health, stress and mood balance, immune health, and even promotes healthy aging. And personally, I just feel a lot better while taking it. Especially on these days where I end up eating a lot of pizza, AG1 makes me feel like I'm actually eating a healthy diet. And I don't know how they do it, but it doesn't taste like you would expect a greens powder to taste. Despite having no added sugar, it actually has a slight sweetness, almost fruity flavor to it that I personally really enjoy. And right now you can head to the link in my description to get a free 1-year supply of AG vitamin D3 plus K2 to support bone and heart health, plus 5 AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. So thanks again to AG1 for sponsoring this video, and thank you for your support. Now I do know that some Detroit style pizzas use Parmigiano Reggiano, so I'm definitely gonna try some of that. But there are some other cheeses to try, like the Asiago or Fontanella that Buddy's uses in their Motor City cheese blend. So let's take a look. Fontina, that should probably be close enough. Now, as far as brick cheese alternatives, obviously we've already tried mozzarella, and that's just a little bit too mild tasting. So the most common alternatives I've seen are white cheddar, Munster, and Monterey Jack, which I think are all a little bit too sharp on their own, but if I blend them in with a little bit of mozzarella, I think that'll be exactly what we're looking for. I've got all my cheese here, and we're gonna do a quick side-by-side taste test. Starting with the Wisconsin brick cheese, just to sort of calibrate my expectations here. All right, now we'll try the white cheddar, and I actually got two different types. I got a milder one and then a sharper one. Yeah, so those are a lot sharper than the brick cheese, but let's give the others a try. Next, we've got our Monterey Jack. Yeah, it's definitely a lot closer on its own, much milder tasting, and it's got a pretty similar creamy texture as well. I definitely would still need to add some mozzarella to it, but maybe only about 25 to 50% mozzarella, with the remaining 50 to 75% being this. Let's try the Munster though. The Munster actually seems to be even milder tasting than the brick cheese. So rather than blending it with mozzarella, I think I'd probably need to blend it with one of these other cheeses. I do think it might be worth doing though, because it has a super soft, creamy texture like the brick cheese, which is something that you don't really get from mozzarella as much. So I definitely think I will give that a try on my pizza. This Munster might be a better blending cheese even than the mozzarella, at least when we're trying to replicate this brick cheese. But as always, we won't know for sure until we bake a pizza with it. So I've got my pizza. Now I did 4 different cheeses here. So the first one is actually just your standard Wisconsin brick cheese. The second one is a blend of 25% white cheddar and 75% mozzarella. This third one is 50% Monterey Jack and 50% mozzarella. And this fourth one is 50% Monterey Jack again, but this time with 50% Munster instead of the mozzarella. So the brick cheese, you know exactly what I would expect. The white cheddar, really solid, definitely a slightly different flavor though than the brick cheese. Now the mozzarella Monterey Jack. Definitely a lot closer flavor-wise, but it's actually a little bit milder tasting than the brick cheese, I think. Texture-wise though, pretty good, I mean just like you'd expect. But now let's try the Munster Monterey Jack, and this is honestly the one that I'm the most curious about. Yeah, so just like I expected based on the raw taste test, I think the Munster blend actually gets us a lot closer to the brick cheese than the mozzarella blend does. With that said, it is still definitely milder tasting than the brick cheese itself. So actually, I think I have an even better idea. Let me bake one more pizza here. Okay, so again here I'm testing out 4 different versions. And what I did differently here is I sprinkled the whole pizza with a little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano, because again, a lot of Detroit style pizzerias do that, so I wanted to see if I like the flavor of it. So this first one here is just my traditional brick cheese, just for sort of a control. Now this next one is my updated brick cheese alternative, and what I did this time was about 40% Munster, 40% Monterey Jack, and then filled in that extra 20% with cheddar. So I'm hoping that's gonna help me to get that little bit sharper taste that I was looking for. Yeah, I'm actually really happy with that. I think it's got just the perfect texture, and that flavor is pretty dang close as well. I think you could adjust the amount of cheddar. Maybe I would go down to like 10 or 15%, but a lot of that also depends on what brand of cheddar you're using. Either way, I think the equal parts Munster and Monterey Jack, and then just fill in the rest with a little bit of cheddar is the way to go. With this next one, you can see that it looks a little bit different. Just visually, it looks like I've fixed that kind of over browning issue with the edges, because what I did with this one was actually use that same 40-40-20 blend that I did here, but I mostly concentrated the cheddar around the edges. So for whatever reason, the cheddar doesn't seem to brown quite as quickly as the brick cheese. So you get that nice crispy edge without worrying about it burning. Very interesting. So it does seem to be a little bit crispier, maybe a little bit less burnt tasting, but it's not actually as big of a difference as I thought it'd be. It might be more of a visual difference than anything. So I think I need to play around with that a little bit more. I mean, I don't think there's any disadvantage to doing it, but there doesn't seem to be as big of an advantage as I thought there would be. But anyways, this last one here, I'm really curious about, because this was my attempt to recreate Buddy's Motor City cheese blend, which contains their brick cheese along with some Fontanella and Asiago. Yeah, so it's definitely really good. I mean, I probably could have gone a little bit heavier on the other cheeses. I think I did about 70% brick cheese, 20% Fontanella, 10% Asiago. Kind of hard to describe the difference in flavor. I'm not like a cheese expert. To me, the way I would describe it is just a little bit funkier, cheesier, but definitely has a different flavor than the classic brick cheese. Again, that's something I'll probably just have to play around with before I come up with my final recipe, but it's definitely worth trying out. Even with just the brick cheese alone though, or the brick cheese alternative, you really can't go wrong. Now in the next video, we're gonna talk about the sauce, but in the meantime, if you didn't see my traditional Buddy's style Detroit pizza recipe, you can check that video out right here. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.